What's going on, everybody? Spaceballs here. Welcome back to another Awakening Chaos Era video. Alright, today we're going to finish talking about the 3 epics that I missed in my last video, like an epic fail. And then we're also going to talk about all the LDs in the game, LD epics and LD nat 5s. And then in the next video, we'll talk about the legendaries. So let's get right into this one and let's pull up Wintrex and talk about her since we missed her. Honestly, I think most of you guys already know how good Wintrex is. Now, the thing with this game is speed is important, but it's not as important as it is in other games. So basically the way this game works is there's rounds, and you can outspeed in the round, but you can't actually lap your opponent. So just like every other gacha out there, yes, speed buff is very strong, same with attack buff. But speed break, not so much, because it's going to take a couple rounds for the speed break to kick in and really take effect. So I think the most important thing in this game is just get up the speed buff, and then that's going to keep you ahead in the round, which is going to give you the first turn, and then that's going to be good. So being that Wintrex has the attack buff and the speed buff, this is going to make her good all over the game, PvP mostly. I'm sure you guys see her in every single PvP battle that you do, because everybody's using Wintrex to take the first turn. She puts up her ultimate, then it speed tunes the rest of the team and also gives them attack buff. So if you're using something like a Zatlox, he'll get the attack buff and then he'll take the first turn. So needless to say that Wintrex is a top tier unit. If you have her, you should definitely be using her. You might not use her in every single piece of content, but I'm sure towards end game you definitely will be. Now, if you're going to build her as much speed as possible, she doesn't have the best base speed, but she does have 128. But at the end of the day, you want to take the first turn. That's all she's there for. You want her to be the first on the team, taking the first turn, so she can give the rest of the team the speed buff and the attack buff. And then a plus with Wintrex is that on her A2, she will also refresh an ultimate on one of your ally characters. Her main use is going to be PvP, because if you bring her into PvE, there's nothing wrong with it, because you get the attack buff, and you also get the speed buff. But the thing is, she's just a glorified support. That's all she's going to be there for. She doesn't do any damage or anything like that. But at the end of the day, she's one of the best supports in the game, so if you have Wintrex, definitely build her. The next regular epic we missed was Melissa. Now, I'm not a big fan of her because her counterpart, Lunar Melissa, which we're going to go over in a second, I think is just flat out better than her. Now, of course, it's harder to get a light version than it is to get a regular version. But at the end of the day, you really want to pick and choose where you're dumping your resources, especially in this game because there's like a bread issue. I'm going to touch on that in another video. But overall, I would say Melissa's going to have a very niche use. Looking at her kit, I kind of want to bring her into Void Tower. The problem with this is it removes one positive effects and then blocks positive effects, but this is only a one target. It's not an AoE. If this was an AoE, I would use her everywhere and definitely would use her in Void Tower, especially hard and mythic. And then just looking at the rest of her kit, it's basically the same thing as her ultimate, except this one doesn't do as much damage, I don't think. This one is 200 and it removes a positive effect. This one is just going to block positive effects, and then on the A1, she's going to do more damage if the target doesn't have any positive effects. Nothing too crazy here. I mean, the block positive effects could be pretty cool. She does have cool traits. She does have the Vanguard buff, which makes her a little bit better. But the thing is, she's a damage dealer at the end of the day. And there's just so many other options or better damage dealers out there. So I can't justify myself building her right now. Maybe in the future. She does look amazing. I just don't see myself using her. If I were to use her, I'd build her as a DPS. So I would stack attack, crit rate, crit damage, all the DPS stats. And I would most likely use her as a niche unit in probably Void Tower or some type of PvE content. I definitely wouldn't bring her into Arena or anything like that, but definitely a fun side toy you can build later on in the game. Next up is Virgil. He's another one that's going to be pretty niche. I see people using him in PvP right now currently. And the thing is, there's so many water units in the game, I just don't see myself building him anytime soon. And honestly, none of his base stats are like popping out crazy. He does have an A in speed, but it's still only 123 base speed. So let's look over the kit. He does have an AoE silence, and I think this is why people are using him in PvP currently. Paired with 2 AoE attacks, and then on his A1, he's also going to buff strip 1 positive effect. And then he also has the arcane debuff, which is going to do 10% damage of the character's max health if they're suffering a silence. Just reading his kit, I can tell he's an arena unit. You're not going to use him in any sort of PvE content. So the thing is, unless you're building a distinct team for arena, I just don't see wasting resources and being effective, especially when you have something like a Taya that has the AoE freeze control. And again, having the silence would be a good thing, but just building him just for that, I just don't see it, especially when his kit is kind of like a damage kit, and then his stats just don't fit that. If I were to build him, I'd build him as a hybrid, balanced build. I'd kind of go half with all the stats, try to get as much, attack, crit rate, speed, and then some health on him, because you want him to stay alive because he's putting up debuffs. Definitely not a bad unit, but definitely only going to be used in Arena. Next up, we have Lunar Melissa, and I like her much, much better than her counterparts. The thing is, she's more of a support. You can see already she has a really high base health and defense. She has an AoE taunt, which I absolutely love this for Void Tower, Hard, and Mythic. And the thing is, right now where I am in the game, I'm kind of scaling for units that I want to use in Void Tower, because that's the next hurdle that I want to jump in the game after I start farming the rune dungeons. And her kit basically fits that perfectly. So now we have a stun on the A2 and a taunt on the A3. Just a bunch of control all over the kit. And then on the A1, she's going to give herself immune, so she can't be controlled. Just a really, really good control character. I know her counterpart, Melissa, is more of a damage dealer, and she's more of a support. It's just when you look at the other DPSs in the game, it's just really hard to justify regular Melissa. She has a pretty interesting trait. The thing is, she has to die for this to proc. But when she does die, she's going to lower the cooldown of one of your allies by 1 turn, and then when she's ascended by 2 turns. Now, the thing with Lunar Melissa, and the reason I wouldn't rush to build her, is because I feel like Celestial Kane, now he's not exactly the same thing, but he does have a taunt, and he has the AoE invincibility for the whole team. So maybe her paired with him would be a really good combo, because you're just buying yourself so many turns of control and being able to take damage. Overall, I would only use Lunar Melissa in PvE content. Most likely Void Tower, Hard, and Mythic. I wouldn't bring her into Rune Dungeons or anything like that. You might be able to stick her into an arena team on a defense just to have some fun, or maybe on an offense team. But overall, if I were to build her, I'd build her strictly support. I would stack HP defense, and most likely I would just use her in Void Tower. Definitely not a bad unit, but again, one of those units that you just don't want to dump resources on because there's probably a better option out there for you. Next up, the man himself, Celestial Kane. I use him myself. He's a fantastic unit. People are already using him in Ash 12. Actually, all the Rune Dungeons, people are using Kane to clear them because of how good he is. So on the ultimate, we're going to get invincibility for the whole team, which is going to buy you 1 turn of no damage. Then on the A2, we're going to have a single target taunt. And then on the A1, he's going to do a random amount of strikes between 2 and 6. And on every strike, he's going to heal himself of 4% of his max health. So this makes him so self-sufficient. So once you get him stacked up enough on your support build, you're going to stack HP defense, probably some speed because of his kit and his ultimate and the taunt. And then also with his straight pairing with the rest of his kit, he's very self-sufficient because every time he gets hit, he's going to clear a negative effect off of himself. Just a really top tier support, probably one of the best in the game if I had to say. So if you have Celestial Kane, you should definitely be using him. The thing is, I don't know how much he's going to be used in arena content, but definitely going to be a top triple S tier in Void Tower, all of it. And just most of the hard PvE content that you're going to do in general, I think Celestial Kane will be a great option or a great support option for any team that you're using. And I'm not saying you can't use him on arena defense. I just don't think that's where his place is. I think his place is more in Void Tower, Hard, Mythic, and the end game Rune Dungeons. Or at least starting off until you could do enough damage. He'll definitely be a great support for that. The thing with Celestial Kane is I have him myself, so I know how top tier he is. I basically cleared all my bounties because of him. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to clear half the bounties that I cleared already. I think I'm on 60 or 65, and it's because of Celestial Kane that I was able to do it. Next up, we have Marine Shadowblood. I use her myself. She is so good in the Ash Rune Dungeon. And not just there, she's, again, a good character for PvE content. I don't think she's going to get much play, again, in the arena side of things. But for what she does and the fact that she can clear the bomb in the Ash Rune Dungeon makes her really efficient for that dungeon. And then with her ultimate, she's going to be able to cleanse that bomb. Especially if you don't have the poison units, she's going to basically be able to carry you through the Ash Rune Dungeon. And I don't think that's her only use. I think she'll be good in most PvE content as a damage dealer because she's so self-sufficient. She gives herself lifesteal, damage reduction, and she also clears a debuff on herself. But then at the same time, she's doing 8% of the target's max HP in true damage. So she's self-sufficient. She does damage. Great top tier unit. If you're going to build her, definitely build her as a DPS, attack, crit rate, crit damage. Again, I don't think you're going to get much use out of her in PvP. But as far as PvE goes, I feel like she's a top tier unit in all content, just depending on what you need at the time. The thing is, her kit kind of speaks for itself. Marine Shadowblood, top tier epic. Probably one of the best in the game, honestly. Because she just does so many things, making her a triple S tier epic in my opinion. Next up, my man Lightwing Zachary. Everybody asks me about Light Zachary. Is he good? Is he worth using? I have talked to a lot of players that have him built and maxed out. And the thing is, he's good. He's not as good as you would think he is, though. If you are going to build him, you're going to build him as a DPS. Again, attack, crit rate, crit damage, probably some speed. Now, the thing with Zach is, his kit sounds really good. The thing to take away from this is he's not landing a critical strike. Yes, he is ignoring defense, and with his trait does give him an extra turn, or a 30% chance going to a 50% chance, so he basically has a 50-50 to take an extra turn, and it will ignore defense. The thing is, it does not land as a critical hit, so to my understanding, the damage tends to be a little underwhelming. If they got rid of this non-critical hit thing, I think Light Zach would be one of the best damage dealers in the game. In his current state, I don't think he's bad or anything like that. I definitely think he's mid-tier. And you could probably use him anywhere in the game, arena, PvE, Rune Dungeons. The thing is, he's only going to be there for damage. Again, he's a selfish unit. He only takes care of himself. He does give himself immune. and he does have that ignore defense, but the fact that he doesn't land a critical hit, sometimes that damage will be a little underwhelming. So comparing him to another top tier damage dealer, you probably won't get what you want out of Light Zach. So I don't think he's a terrible unit. I just don't think he's a must build unit. Definitely a fun toy. If I had Light Zach, I would definitely build him. I would build him over regular Zachary, or I would 6-star him over regular Zachary any day of the week. I just don't think he's going to be as top tier as people thought he was, or even as much as I thought he was. I basically think he's A tier or A plus tier, but overall he's definitely a usable unit. I just don't think he's the best DPS in the game, and if you have other options, you're probably going to want to build them first and build Light Zach more as a side project. So first up is going to be Euron. And now just remember, guys, I only have one LD95. The rest I'm going off of just talking to the community, people on Discord, people on stream, getting their feedback. Now, Euron, I have him on my friends list. A lot of people in the community have 6-starred him. And the main thing I'm hearing about Euron is his damage sucks. He does basically no damage. And the crazy thing about it is he has an S tier in attack, so you would think this man would be a damage dealer. But gathering all my information, his damage just doesn't exist. So that means his multipliers are garbage trash. And hopefully in the future, they will look into this. Maybe it's a bug or something. Who knows? Maybe his multipliers aren't what they're supposed to be. And in the future, they might tweak his multipliers. Because right now, he's super underwhelming. And his whole kit basically revolves around damage. The S tier in attack. His AoE on his ultimate. He does have a stun on his A2. The problem with this is, and he gives himself immune. So he can be good for maybe Void Tower. The issue I have with it is that he has an S tier in attack. So the rest of his base stats are a little bit lower. And you're going to be building him as a DPS. So the thing is, he's not really going to take too much damage. You want him there to do the damage. And the thing is, his kit is really cool and interesting. He steals a positive effect. He gives himself attack up for 1 turn. And that's just on his A1. He also gives himself a shield. So this is good when it comes to protecting himself. Because if you're building him as a glass cannon, at least he'll be able to have some type of shield so he won't die fast in the PvE content. The best thing about Euron, and the reason I would use him in Void Tower, most likely hard and mythic, is because every time he lands a critical strike, he's going to give himself a shield, 30% of his attack. And if you look at his base attack, it's almost 1500. So that means this man's going to have massive shield. So he's definitely going to be able to protect himself. The problem is the damage just isn't going to be good enough. So you're going to have to bring in a second DPS. But if you're trying to do something slow and over time, he might be a good unit for that. I just don't think he's the top triple S tier unit that everybody thought he was. I think he's more in an AA plus category. Definitely a fun toy. He's an LD95. If you pull him, definitely be happy. But just know that his multipliers kind of suck, and they definitely need to address that in the future. But overall, his kit is really, really cool, and I hope they fix him in the near future. I would love to pull any LD95 at the end of the day. And honestly, if I didn't talk to the community and a bunch of my friends that have Euron, I would think he's a top triple S tier unit. But talking to them, I know that his multipliers suck, so I want to share that information with you guys here. Next up, we have the Orgs. This is my favorite faction in the game, so I'm a little biased. No, I won't be biased. Now, the thing with the Crazed Org is I hear mixed things with him. Some people say he's OP broken, needs a nerf. Some people say he absolutely sucks. Now, looking at his kit, I don't think he absolutely sucks. He has a really high base attack, good crit rate, good defense, and the rest of his base stats aren't too shabby. He's an LD95 at the end of the day, so he should have good base stats. The one thing that sticks out to me, what makes me think that he could be good in most content, especially like Void Tower, stuff like that, is because when the enemy loses health, and then we know in Void Tower they have a ton of health, his damage is going to scale with that, and I feel like that's going to hit like an absolute truck. And I feel like in arena content, he could be really good against tanky teams because of this scaling with lost health. And then also pairing this with his trait where he's going to be ignoring 30% of the target's defense. So now he's scaling with health lost and he's ignoring defense. I just feel like the way this kit sounds, I can't see him being a bad unit. And then on his kicker, he's going to increase the damage by 30%. So this man is just built to do a ton of damage. So in my opinion, if I pulled him, I'd be so happy. Him and the Dark Org are my most wanted LD-Nat5s in the game. I think they're both amazing units. I'm just sharing the information that I got with you guys so you guys can understand. But if I were to build this man, it would be as a pure DPS, and I'd bring him into all the content and have a blast with him. Honestly, if I were to pull a second one, I hope it's one of the Orgs. I love both of them. I think they're both fantastic units. Just looking at his kit, I can't see him being a bad unit. His kit synergizes perfectly. I think this man's going to hit like an absolute truck. Next up, we have the Corrupt Org. He's my favorite unit in the game currently. My favorite design, my favorite unit. I love this man. He's a tank killer. He's actually a PvP character, so arena content. The thing is, he's a tanky beast, and he just destroys tanks. Right now, he's the #1 pick for arena content. Just browsing over his skills, you can see on his ultimate, we have removes all positive effects from an enemy, then deals 100% damage, and then silence for 2 turns. Damage scales with characters' max health. And then we take a look up here under stats, and we see that he has an S tier under health. Almost 8,000 base health. And then his damage scaling off of that, this dude is going to hit like a freaking truck. And that's why he's able to just destroy tanks. And he also puts up a silence as well. And then pairing with his trait at the start of the round, deals true damage equal to 5% of this character's max health. So everything is scaling off his max health. And he has such a high base health. I just can't see this man being bad. Now the thing is, he's not going to be too great in PvE content because he is a single target nuker. Every skill he has is single target, but this dude's going to wreck any tank in front of him in arena content, and he looks amazing. And on top of the rest of his kit, he's going to give himself max health up for 2 turns, making his base health even higher. This man is just going to shred. I would only use him in PvP content myself. If I were to build him, it would be with crit rate and health because I want him to crit, and his damage is going to be based off his health, so you don't have to worry about attack too much. Just get as much crit rate, crit damage, and health as you can, and watch this man just shred through the tanks. Fantastic unit. I love this man. I hope he is my next LD Nat 5. Wink, wink, awakening. Hook me up. Give me an org. Now, I started building Dark Nicholas, and then I realized really fast that he is just a arena character. It seems like most of the LD Nat 5s in this game are based for arena, not so much the PvE side of things, which is kind of sad. I would like to see more of them be geared for the player-verse environment content, personally. The thing with Dark Nicholas, I think late game, he's going to be one of the best arena characters in the game, right along there with the Dark Org. Just because of the way his kit is, just like the Dark Org, it just synergizes perfectly for arena content. Now, if you're going to build Dark Nick, you're going to want to build him as a pure DPS. Again, attack, crit rate, crit damage. And you always want to have enough speed to take the first turn in the round when your Wintrex buffs attack and speed. You want to make sure that your DPS follows up and doesn't get cut in that first round. So Dark Nicholas has an unhealable, and that's just basically what I'm using him for right now in dungeons and to clear missions. I use his unhealable. That's basically all I use him for right now. I am going to stick him on my arena defense really soon once I get him 6-starred and maxed out. He does have death immunity. The thing is, there's so many units in the game, like one of the orgs that just strip. Borden goes right through this, basically kill him in one shot because he ignores buffs. Now, the one thing I do like about his kit is his traits. And the trait allows him to switch his ultimate in his A1. So basically, you can spam his A1 as his ultimate. So once he puts up the Dark Avatar buff, he's going to switch his ultimate and his A1. And in doing that, if you click on his ultimate and you click up here on the right hand side, you will see that this changes to all enemies, which is giving him an AoE. So I thought he'd be good in all content. From what I'm hearing, he's not really that great in other content. I'm going to try him out in Void Tower and stuff like that in the future. Right now, I'm just going to say that he's a PvP character. But the fact that he's going to have an AoE that switches with his A1 is going to make him super strong. And he's going to do a ton of damage because look at his base attack. I think it's one of the highest base attacks in the game at 1611. This man is going to do a ton of damage, and that's why I stopped building him, but I think I'm going to build him again, because I really do see potential here in his kit. Basically, when you pull an LD Nat 5, you can feel good pulling Dark Nick, like you didn't pull a piece of crap. The dude has an insane base attack, so no matter what late game, you're going to get use out of your Dark Nicholas. So if you pulled him like me, at first I was sad, but then when I went over his kit, I was like, wait, this dude's not that bad. I'm going to get some use out of him in the near future. The thing is, he's going to need really good runes to really show off. The thing about it is, most of these LD Nat 5s are going to need really good gear to show off what they can actually do. Because what's happening is a lot of people are using these units probably with so-so gear, and then they're like, oh, this character sucks because the gear might not be that good. It's not anybody's fault, it's just you're not able to farm that 6-star legendary gear with the amazing substats. But I think a lot of these LDs just are really gear intensive and they need really good gear to show off what they can actually do. But if you are going to use Dark Nicholas, throw him in Arena. I think he's going to be great there, especially due to the fact that he's unkillable. So if he takes a turn with his base attack, if you have enough damage on him, this man is going to end up killing something. Everybody tells me they get wrecked by Sir Nicholas on Arena because of his AoE. This man just one-shot stuff. Really strong character. Don't feel bad if you pull Dark Nicholas. He definitely has use in the game. Now, on the other hand, his counterpart, not so good. Not a terrible unit, but if you look at his base attack and then you look at Dark Nicholas's base attack, he's almost 300 less. And the thing is, he's almost doing the same thing to an extent. He does kind of synergize for the team a little bit. He's going to enhance the stats of a random ally by 100%, which could be really effective if he does this to like one of your tanks or something like that. So let's say you have Celestial Kane on the team, and then he buffs him, or if he buffs one of your DPS units, this could be really effective. And then clicking on the second one, we have 50% damage dealt to this attack into healing. So that means he's going to be a healer as well. So I don't think he's as bad as people think he is. I think, again, he could be really good in arena content, just like his counterpart, Dark Nicholas. I just think Dark Nicholas is better, so people are kind of just saying he's not good because Dark Nick is just flat out better. I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking his trait. It's not the best trait, but he does make himself the fastest unit on the team. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe it is underwhelming. It looks interesting to me. Now, the thing is, if I have Wintrex, I don't know if I really want him going first because I want Wintrex to go first to buff attack. But once you get a second ascension, he's going to do this every round instead of at the start of the battle. He does have an AoE in his A1 if he's able to get the target down to 50% HP. The thing is, if he's hitting a tank or something like a Celestial Kane, it's probably not going to happen. So the stipulation kind of sucks. If this was just flat out hits all enemies, this would be much better. Because again, we know Dark Nicholas has an AoE that can potentially be on his A1. So overall, I think Nicholas is probably the worst of the two. I don't think he's complete garbage trash. I do think he's on the low end of the spectrum, and you're only really going to get use out of him in arena content. You're not going to be able to bring him anywhere else in the game. So building him early on is out of the question. More of a end game late toy, or just to build your LD Nat 5 because you have one. And if you are going to build him, you're going to build him as a DPS. Depending on his damage, I think overall he might be a little underwhelming, unfortunately. I hate to say that about an LD Nat 5. There is quite a few of them in the game, though. But moving right along to Evelyn, first down. She's another one that's not as good as people thought she was. In the betas, her multipliers were way better. And I think she did more attacks on her A1. I think now she only does 1 attack on her A1. I think this was like 3 or 4 attacks in the first beta, and then she stripped on each attack. Now she only hits and strips once on her A1. And the thing with this game, what we talked about at the beginning of the video, like Wintrex with the rounds, you can't skip your opponent in the round. So you're going to take a turn, your opponent's going to take a turn, and then you're going to go to the next round. So the ultimate is not as good as people thought it would be. It's not terrible. It definitely is a good ability. And she does give a bonus turn to the entire team, but it's at the end of the round. It's not the end of the turn. That's what you have to keep in mind. So just like the speed break in this game, it's not something that's going to come into effect right away. And this is on a 5-turn cooldown. She does have 50% defense down, but this is a single target hit, along with her A1 being a single target hit. Now, she does have an interesting trait. This does give defense up to all team members for 3 rounds at the start of the battle. And then when you trade her up, she's going to give defense up and attack up. I think that's going to be the best part of Evelyn, unfortunately. Now, she does have an S in health, so she's going to be a tanky support. The thing is, I feel like Evelyn should be more of a damage dealer, not so much a support. Because support-wise, she's not really bringing too much to the team, especially if you don't have her ascended. You're only going to get a defense buff. Now, don't get me wrong, a defense buff is great, but she's not putting it on herself. She's only putting it on the other 3 members, so she's not protecting herself with that defense buff. Even when you ascend her, this says all team members, so I don't think she's going to be putting these buffs on herself. So the thing is, unless her multipliers are crazy, outrageous, which they're not from what I'm hearing, and the fact that she's classified as a support, she has really, really low base DPS stats, so she has an S in health, which is great. So she's going to be super tanky, but the thing is she's not going to do any damage. So she is a good unit. I think in the right team, she could be fantastic. The thing is, I don't know where I would use her myself. I wouldn't want to use her in arena content. I can't see myself putting her on my PvE team, taking a slot from somebody else. And it's unfortunate, really, because at first look, you look at some of these units, you're like, wow, they're really good. They're well balanced. But then when you get them into action, that's not so much the case. Again, I don't think she's terrible, so don't beat me up in the comments too much. I just don't think she's anything spectacular. If you're having her and you love her and you're using her and you're able to bring her in all the content, let me know in the comments. But from the feedback I'm getting, she's not as good as people thought she was going to be. She went from S+ tier down to basically an A tier. She's just a really good support unit. I never like to talk bad about an LD Nat 5 or even an LD in general, but I always want to keep it up front with you guys. And this is the feedback that I'm getting from the community. So I'm going to share it with you guys here today. The thing with Evelyn is you want her to be a DPS and she's just not. She is a support unit. Next up, we have Abandoned. Really, really good unit. You can get him for free farming one of the shops in the game. I think it's the arena shop or the trial shop, one of the shops. This man is going to be a damage dealer. He has an S in attack. We love that. 1500 base attack. Sir Nicholas, still the king of the base attack, though. My man is pushing over 1600. The thing with Abandoned is what makes him really interesting is that he prolongs stat reduction effects. I believe that's debuffs, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I'm pretty sure what this means is that he extends or prolongs the debuff turn. So if it's 1 turn, I'll make it 2 turns. And then not just that, he does a ton of damage. This man deals 100% damage to all enemies while healing. So he's healing and doing damage. We love that. We love DPSs that can protect themselves and they're not glass cannons. They're just doing a ton of damage, but they're also able to be self-sufficient at the same time. His A2 sounds so strong. Now, the only bad thing about his kit is that he does give himself a debuff. Not a big deal, though, unless he gives himself a 50% defense down. That would kind of suck. But other than that, I heard Abandoned does really, really nice damage, and he looks amazing. I love his actual overall look. They did a really good job with the artwork for him. And then looking at his trait, he's going to reduce all of his cooldowns by 1 turn. Then he's also going to do bonus damage based on the negative effects that he has on himself. So it does synergize with his A1. Again, you don't really want to get an attack break or defense down on yourself. But if he's doing more damage, you most likely won't get that debuff anyways. It'll probably be like a speed break or something like that. And overall, his damage is really good. So I think he could be used basically in all content. I feel like most people are going to use him in arena content. I do think that he'll have a place in Void Tower and PvE in general. Maybe even late game rune dungeons because of the fact that he heals himself. he might be one of those units that we use at endgame, just doing pure raw damage. And the fact that he's able to heal himself, and depending on how much damage he's going to do with these negative effects and how high his multiplier is going to be, Abandoned, definitely a top tier LD. So if you have him or if you're farming him for free, keep going. I love this unit. I can't wait to get him myself. I'm going to start farming the pieces really, really soon. Now that my account is rolling, I'm going to start farming the pieces soon. I just like to make sure my account is good first before I start wasting resources on farming actual units. But how could you not want this man? Look at him, the Grim Reaper. He looks freaking amazing. I love the artwork in this game. They did a really good job. And we saved the best for last. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think I Morgan is the best. But I want to know in the comments if you guys think I Morgan is a guy or a girl. Something fun we can do. Now, the problem with Morgan, and I think the problem that most people are having with these LD Nat 5s, they're very gear intensive. You would think if you have an LD Nat 5, they wouldn't need the best gear and they could still kind of do what they need to do. But the one thing I'm noticing is that these units need good gear to show off what they can do. Now, I've heard a lot of mixed things about Morgan, just like some of the others. Some people say he's good, some people say he sucks, some people say he does really good damage. The thing is, he does have the Moonlight buff, which is very interesting. Each stack allows this character to ignore 2% of the enemy's defense, max 20%, heals 3%, max health per Moonlight obtained. So this stacks, and then on his actual skill, we're going to have grants 2 stacks to this character, then deals 120% damage to all enemies and removes 1 positive effect. So he's buff stripping and doing damage. If removal is successful, he'll grant another stat of Moonlight. So to me, he sounds really strong. Again, just talking to some of the community, and I don't know how good their runes are, what they have on him, if they're runing him properly. So sometimes information can get misstrued, but just reading his overall kit, to me, he sounds good. Talking to some other people, he's not so good and needs a buff, but his whole kit scales around this Moonlight, which is going to stack, and again, this revolves around ignoring defense and him healing himself, so he's going to be self-sufficient, he's going to do damage. I always like, again, units that are self-sufficient and can do a ton of damage, and Morgan fits that role. And then again, on his trait, he's going to give himself Moonlight at the start of the turn. If you get him Ascended, he's going to give himself Moonlight. If the character is below 50% health, he's going to grant 3 stacks of Moonlight, and that's going to heal him up, because we know that's going to heal 3% of the Moonlight obtained. So the more stacks, the more heal, more ignore defense. So Morgan is basically scaling off the Moonlight. I think that's the issue people are having with him. So unless you get a lot of stacks of Moonlight, his damage is going to be underwhelming. He does have a really good base attack once again. Honestly, I wouldn't mind getting Morgan. I think I would have fun with him. He looks pretty cool. Just a fun toy that you could bring out with you in arena content. I don't think I would use him anywhere else in the game. He fits right in line with some of the other LD Nat 5s where they're just strictly arena characters. You might be able to use him in like bounty and stuff like that as a fun damage dealer. I just don't think he's going to be that great. Overall, I don't think he's complete trash. I definitely think he has uses. I just think the problem with Morgan is you have to stack these Moonlights. So it's going to take a couple rounds to get him really up and running and get that hard number damage out there. And I think that's the problem that people are having with him, because right now most people are just farming adventures or rune dungeons, and by the time he picks up all those stacks, the round is over and he's not really able to show off how much damage he can do. Overall, if you're going to build him as a DPS. He's just going to be a fun toy, unfortunately. He's not going to be something you build for specific content or anything like that. But let me know in the comments what you think of Morgan and all the other LD Nat 5s that we talked about here today. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, so comment down below and let me know what you're thinking. I'm going to be picking the sub celebration winners tonight or tomorrow, so this is your last chance to get a part of the sub celebration, and that is linked down below with my Twitch and my Discord. If you want to be a part of the random giveaway that we do here on YouTube, all you have to do is sub to the channel, like, and comment on my past 10 videos, and that will automatically enter you to the random giveaway. I truly do love each and every single one of you. I will see you in the next one. Spaceballs out. Peace.